Welcome to Decoding the Unknown with your host, Tiffany H. Lewis. Be prepared to believe. If you don't already, join Tiffany as she uncovers mysteries and secrets and shares them with you. Follow and subscribe on iHeartRadio and ClearSource Radio. Get in on the conversation live Fridays at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time at 254-987-5027. Get ready to dive into the unknown.
Hi, greetings everyone. Welcome to Decoding the Unknown. This is Tiffany H. Lewis on ClearSource Radio and also on iHeartRadio. I hope everybody's having a great evening. I would like to start by asking you to follow, like, subscribe Tiffany H. Lewis or Decoding the Unknown or ClearSource Radio or all of the above on any social media. And also on iHeartRadio, please. So, the last time I talked to you guys, we're still in season 1, and I've been breaking it down kind of a little bit at a time about certain topics that I just can't squeeze into any less than, I promised, a good 15-20 episodes just in season 1. And season 1 is an introductory season. I am introducing you to things to prepare you for season 2. So far, I believe we have discovered MK Ultra, mind control. We have talked a little bit about reptilians. We've talked a little bit about cloning. And tonight, I'm going to introduce you to a couple more aspects. The first one is going to be Gnostics or Gnosticism, and this, in the way that I am referring to Gnostics, is pre-biblical Gnostics, okay? So we're talking thousands and thousands of years ago. And then I'm going to give you a really good breakdown of Archons and what Archons are. Because really this goes back as far as humans believe time to be. This one's hard to explain. So, us humans, we believe that there is such a thing as time, and that time has only gone on for however many years, AD, BC, whatever. But in reality, time is infinite, and there is no real time. It's not really whatever time it is that we look at on our watch. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. I want to break this down in terms of, I'm not going to put a label on timing of any of these things that we're going to be discussing tonight. I am only going to say that it was a very, very, very long time ago, and that the Gnostics are going to introduce us to the Archons, who, and everywhere that you look up, you're going to find out that the Archons were the first original group of gods, demigods, demiurge. Now, there are lots of words for gods. You've got Christianity that believes in demons and angels and Jesus and God, by the word God. You've got Islamic and a couple of other, maybe even Babylonian, that believe that they're called the jinn, like J-I-N or J-I-N-N, jinn. Different parts of the world believe in different things, but the thing that they all have in common is that however it is represented, there has to have been some kind of a creator. I think we can all agree that there was some kind of a creator, whether you believe it is Allah or God or jinn or fire-breathing dragons or archons or you're a Satanist. It doesn't matter. I'm not here to judge, and I'm not here to have any opinions. I'm just going to lay the facts out there on the line, and as always, it's up to you to decide if I have decoded the truth. Do you believe it? Are you willing to at least open up to the idea of believing it? And then at what point will you begin to awaken? And that's what season 1 is all about. This is the awakening process. So I'd like to welcome you this evening. Happy Friday night. And let's awaken you some more. So the very first thing I'm going to do is give you a brief history of Gnostics or Gnosticism. And the Gnostics are the ones who use the term Archon to refer to several servants of the demiurge or the creator god. And this is the creator or god that stood between the human race and a transcendent god that could only be reached through Gnosis. Okay? So there they've added roles of angels and demons in the Old Testament. And I know I said we were going to not talk about the Bible. This is pre-biblical, but even in the Bible, even in the Old Testament, minus a couple of books, gosh, guys, this is just it's so easy for me to understand, but it's very hard for me to put it into words for you. So, okay, Gnosticism, that somehow I think has turned into what may be either competitive with Christianity or Judaism, or maybe it's its own religion. Maybe it's not competitive with anything at all, but they're the Gnostics. That's it. They're the one who used the term Archon to begin with. And the Archons are the creators. They, like I said, not in a biblical way. We'll get to that. We'll really, really, really get into this one this evening. But anyway, they created the human race. How about that? And then things like angels and demons and the Bible and things like that were introduced for several reasons, and we'll get into that. So I want to take you back to Egypt. All right? In the Egyptian times, again, I'm not going to attempt to put a number on this. Let's just say thousands or even millions or billions of years ago. Whatever you think that we know about humans, time, and space, just forget all that for a little bit. And let's just go back to Egyptian times. Just try to stay with me on this one. So the Gnostics mostly came from Egypt. And they were called, that group of them was called the Basilidians. Now they accepted the existence of an Archon called Abraxas, who was the prince of 365 spiritual beings. Right now, I think that you're starting to see how angels kind of come into play, and demons for that matter. So moving forward, the Orphics, which was another group, accepted the existence of 7 Archons. And it goes on to name the kinds of Archons, but that's not really important right now what the names were that they used for the 7 groups of Archons that they accepted. Anyway, okay, the Gnostics believed that the Archons could only be reached through the process of Gnosticism, which is sort of a deliverance or a divine spark of knowledge in humanity, completely disconnected from all of the vibrations around us, all of the frequencies around us, and allow oneself to fully disconnect from everything that we know and everything in this realm that we are forced to live in. And most of us are in our third realm. And I don't know any human that's made it to or fourth or past the fourth. Anyway, so you use this process called, gnosis. And it's a Greek word meaning Gnosticism, which, right back to the same thing, it's kind of going in circles here. It means to know. So it signifies a knowledge or insight into humanity's real nature, which is divine, right? And then that, once you realize that our real nature is divine and beautiful and full of light and full of knowledge, and that by believing that, you allow yourself to be led to the deliverance of what's really going on in humanity. You are delivered from humanity and its constraints of earthly existence. Okay? So now, I'm using a lot of notes here tonight, so please bear with me. Back in 1897, some Gnostics pointed out that it is a consistence in the soul's struggle with the hostile Archons in its attempt to reach pleroma. It's a close parallel of the soul's ascent way back to Babylonian times and way back to astrology, which is why you hear so many people, and especially knowledgeable people or psychic people or astrologers or kings or whomever from a very long time ago, always referring to astrology. So far I've brought up Babylonian, astrology, Egypt. And those are all very, very important because these are all the foundations of where we're going to go with this conversation and a lot of other future conversations. So we need to lay that down now. So in the Babylonian astrology, through the realms of the 7 planets at the time to who they called their god Anu, or Anu, the late Babylonian religion can definitely be indicated as the home of these ideas. So Gnosticism came from Babylonian religion, moving on to Egypt. If you go into, I don't remember if it's Iraq or Iran, that is now what, oh goodness. Well, anyway, it was in the Bible. It's whatever. Jerusalem. It's Jerusalem. And this goes on to describe several more kinds of groups. And like I said, there are a lot of names for these demigods. The demiurge. It doesn't matter what you call them. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are or what you call the creator of all things. The point is, right, especially through this awakening process, the point is to be able to awaken and to be informed, okay? So, in a biblical sense, or in Buddhism, for example, it is in the primeval strife of Satan against the light world that 7 hostile powers were captured and set as constellations in the heavens, where they are guided by good star powers and prevented from doing harm. Now, you've heard about star children. If not, we'll have a conversation about that. And here's that word, the number 7 again. So it's saying that, again, in Buddhism, it is an informative process, and in their belief system, they believe that Satan is the strife, is the problem. That's what they're calling the anti-creator, or maybe they're referring to him as the creator. It doesn't really matter. At this point, 7 hostile powers were captured and set as constellations in the heavens, right? And just a minute ago, we realized that there was at least 7 different types of Gnostics that come from Egypt. And again, there was 365 supposed spiritual beings, and it gives the names of 7 who went on to point out that, this is why we are consistently struggling. This is the struggle within our soul with the hostile Archons. And it is simply a blockage of information. And that is exactly what's going on there. Some people call this the fight between good and evil, or a war, or let me just go there. Anything that is controlled, okay? Banks, politics, politicians, free will, thoughts, creativity, etc., etc., etc. Anything that can be controlled, there's always this fight against it, because humans were given, free will. So we are to believe, no matter which way you believe it, and no matter which way you name this demiurge, either way, I think we can all agree that there is one. And you don't have to believe me on this, that 7 of them were taken and put into the constellations, where they were guarded by good star powers and prevented from doing harm. 5 of the evil powers of the planets were okay, so there's 7 planets that are the first 7 lined up in the planetary system. And then the only things that are separate from that and are not considered evil powers are the sun, the moon, and the earth. And I need to touch on the sun for a minute. I've spoken of this before, and I need to speak of it again. The original sun was Saturn. That's why Saturn has rings around it. The rings around Saturn are what determines what frequency we live in, and that's why it has so many rings around it. Every single ring is sending out vibrations and signals to Earth and to other planets. And anyway, we will have a whole conversation about that one day, but I want to stick to the subject a little bit here. Now we're going to talk about Archons. So, Archons are said to be evil. But Archons, if you break the word down, it is also known as the divine spark. It is... oh, goodness. It means a ruler. So, the Archons... I'm just going to put this in layman's terms. The Archons came from who knows where. But we, us humans, right now, and all of humanity, for as far back as time will allow us to perceive it, has always been ruled in an archonic ruled universe. We are all unaware. We don't even know it. This is where Christianity comes in, and good and evil, and if you do this, this is going to happen, and if you do this good, and then you're going to be rewarded with heaven or hell or whatever the situation is. Just forget everything that you know about that for a little bit. And imagine that there was this group called Archons who are not human, and they have no creativity. And by creativity and no imagination, that means that if you were to give an Archon a blank piece of paper with nothing on it and hand them a pen, they literally cannot create anything. They don't have any free will, and they're jealous of us humans because we have creativity. We have imagination. We are able to create things. However, if you hand a human being a blank piece of paper and a pen or a pencil or a crayon, and we create something onto it, no matter what it is that we create, even if it's just a circle, and then you hand that piece of paper to the Archon, they're going to take it and twist it around and twist it and turn it upside down, and they're going to invert it. That is the reality of the world that we live in right now. And I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, and I tend to do that in these shows, but there's so much to tell you, and I try to cover as much as I can in each episode. So, what we know now is that we live in an inverted reality. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Archons before I tell you about the inverted reality and the matrix that we live in. So, following my notes here, I'm going to... Okay. So, Archons created a bad copy of humans. And Archons are not human, right? And they're jealous of the humans. So, every day, through things like the educational system, college, banking, technology, and the supposed realities that we perceive that we have created, and also perceive that we cannot change, that we create for ourselves, right? Reality. All it's doing is dumbing us down. Seriously. We're sheep. Not all of us, but those that are still asleep. Everybody is a sheep, and please don't take offense. I'm just putting it in layman's terms. So the Archons built a version of the human beings because, again, they were jealous, and they, I believe there's even stories in the Bible about this where the angels came down from the heavens and then started mating with human beings, and out comes a hybrid, right? Human angel, human creator, human whatever, hybrid. And hybrids we talked a little bit about that last week. I'm not going to get much into that this week. Hybrids can be anything from reptilians to sort of angels, but as long as you understand that there's one creator or one set of creators, and that good and evil don't really exist, because evil spelt backwards means to live, and we live in an inverted reality, and a reality controlled by a group of Archons who have twisted and turned our reality and our perception and our universe and everything that we know, every single thing that we think we know, see, touch, feel, smell, hear, say. Words are so important. You guys got to be careful what you say, because I say this all the time. A thought will become a word, and a word will become an action. So, personally, I don't speak much, and I'm very cautious of what words I speak, because as soon as you speak that word, you have created something to happen, whether you want to call that the law of attraction or not. However, you need to understand that we live in an inverted universe. So, if I were to say, I don't want this to happen because we live in an inverted universe, that's exactly what's going to happen. However, if I were to switch my thinking and say, yo, my gosh, I can't wait until I go to the beach on Friday, whether I have plans to go to any beach or even live anywhere near a beach. And now I've just changed my pattern of thinking. I've changed the frequency. I've changed the brain waves. And I changed the pattern and made it fit into the inverted world that we live in. But let's go back for a little bit on the Archons. And now everybody sees them as evil. There are some things that they are said to do that I am not going to say on the air, but let's just imagine that they are horrible parasites that tear our brain apart and deny us the awakening process and deny us the knowledge that we need to wake up and to change our life and our world and to progress from this level, this realm that we're in, this stupidity that we live in and believe, going all the way back to kindergarten and up. and all the way through any belief system, no matter what your belief system is, we are being brainwashed, you guys, and brainwashed by the masses. That's it. That's the world that we live in. And everything that you think is good is actually bad. And everything that you think is bad is not bad. This is an inverted reality. So, a couple more facts about the Archons. So, the Gnostics once asked, how do we fight these ancient Archons that rule everything? You fight them with knowledge, wisdom, detachment, and most importantly, and this, I believe that this also lines up with any spiritual beliefs you may have. We beat them by waking up, or fight them, whatever. It doesn't matter how you want to phrase that, but you have to go through the awakening process. It is a spiritual process where you stop being asleep and stop turning a blind eye to every single thing, and understand that every single thing you've ever been taught in your entire life is completely a lie. It is completely backwards. This is a controlled environment that we live in. This is a controlled universe. This is a controlled planet. And it is controlled by some very, very evil forces. And they're called Archons. And like I was going to say just a second ago, the way that you can most certainly guarantee to awaken a little bit faster is, and I know this is going to sound crazy, and that's how inverted the world is that we live in. I tell you the truth, and I get called crazy for it. Okay? Right? Somebody tells you the truth, and they're called crazy, or imagining things, or it's a theory, right? Conspiracy theorist, right? But now if somebody tells you a lie straight to your face, you're gonna believe it, and you don't call them crazy, even if you can prove that they're lying. They're not crazy. They're just, chalk it up, go back to sleep. Just go back to sleep and pretend that did not happen. Or you could wake up, and the way you wake up is through the language of love. Now the Archons, and neither did Jesus or people that were Jewish or Buddhist or any other language in the whole wide world outside of the English language. All of that did not exist. Human somewhere created the English language. And in the original, in the way that the universe is meant to revolve, language as we know it verbally is not necessary. We speak from our heart. And I think I did touch on this a little bit last week, but I'm going to say it again. If you've ever seen the movie Avatar, this is about a race of human slash whatever they were hybrid with. And their language is love, and that's the only language that they know, and they don't physically speak. They have this intense emotional bond to each other. They treat each other well. They love each other. They help each other. They don't speak. They can, because they've disconnected from everything on the outside of that world. They live in their world, and they stay focused on what they do in their world and follow the natural creation and the natural order of things. The language of love allows them to read minds and have empathy and feel each other's pains and happiness. And language is a funny thing, because when you look at somebody, you can usually tell if they're angry or something like that. And so many people are so obsessed with technology and their phones and the social media and things like that, and they don't disconnect. Okay? And when you don't disconnect, you're just sinking further into the rabbit hole. And I know that I just made a reference to Alice in Wonderland, and that's because we're going to get into that at some point. So here it is. I'm going to lay it flat out on the line. We live in a matrix. Just like in Hunger Games. Just like exactly like the movie The Matrix. So if you haven't seen that, watch The Matrix. And then when we have the next show, I'd like you to either re-listen to this one or come to the next show with an open mind and just pretend that what I'm saying is true, whether it sounds crazy or not, because the worst that's going to happen is that you're going to start seeing the signs and seeing the symbols, and you're going to begin to awaken from every lie that you've ever been told, every book that gave you false information in your entire life at university or public schools, private schools, any kind of schooling whatsoever, any kind of educational, banking. If that's not control, I don't know what is, but okay, I got a little off subject there, but we live in a controlled environment. We live in a matrix. Our thoughts are everything. Our language is unique to us as humans. We are a product of a form of hybrids, and we live in a technology-based world. And now I'm going to try to break this down into layman's terms as well. So we live in a world that has frequencies, and frequencies and vibrations are exactly our code. Okay, a frequency, a sound, it's a code. It can be decoded by numbers like ones and zeros. Fact. And language, certain sounds of certain letter, not certain, every single sound, every single letter, every single way that you say something, it creates a sound or a series of sounds that can literally be coded or decoded. For real, guys, for real. Knowing that, again, you have to be careful what you say. And just a small, quick, tiny example. Okay, so if I had 3 violins playing the same note, right? And then I add a 4th violin, and whether it's playing anything or not, or a higher note, or a lesser note, or any series of things, just by adding that 4th violin, when these 3 are completely in sync and vibrating on the same wavelength, because they're all playing the same note at the same time and synchronized with each other, that 4th violin just threw the 3 off, and now it has created a whole new level of information, a new frequency, which is then decoded and coded into something else. It's a whole other language. It's a whole other code. So everything that we say, it's code, and it can be uncoded. And it is ironic that I was asked to do this show called Decoding the Unknown, because I came into this unknowing, unawake, unaware, and asleep, just like the most of everybody in the entire world, except for the elite, or those who know, or those who are MK Ultra mind controlled. And I might even go so far as to say politicians, rulers, Satanists, people who aren't really that religious, but are open to as much education and learning as they can of the facts. Okay, books aside, libraries aside, I'm talking about old documents, even before the Bible. I'm talking about scrolls that that came out or were discovered in a sealed jar, 2,000 years ago. And it was a bunch of scrolls. I think it said that there was, I don't know, I don't want to quote it wrong, 120 to a million different scrolls in it. And this is where groups like the Archons were giving, or the Gnostics and other entities, other groups were giving away the real secrets of it. And this, again, goes back to the Egyptian times, the Babylonian times, Jerusalem. This all goes back to the Egyptian times. This is why hieroglyphics exist. See how there's not a word except for hieroglyphic? If I were to look at a hieroglyphic and I tried to turn that into a word, where did that word come from? It came from a word that we made in the English language that might describe what it might appear to be. And when you say that word, the way it sounds, the way I'm saying sounds, I just created a frequency that can be uncoded, can and will. And if I were to say sounds, that's a whole other frequency. It's an entirely other level, another vibrational level, another... Guys, everything is exactly like the movie The Matrix, and the natural order of the world, of the universe, is the language of love, and to learn how to live more like with love and in a full understanding, and not speaking so much, and understanding that your thoughts, you've got to learn how to control your thoughts, because if you're not controlling them, then who is? Because somebody is. That commercial that you just saw, that song that you can't get out of your head, every single thing is a code, and it is all training you to believe something, no matter what that something is. Every thought that you have is so unoriginal. Your thought came from something that you saw, heard, talked about, discussed. Even the thoughts that you're having right now as I'm saying this, you're getting those thoughts from me. And this is great for you if you're listening. If you're listening and you're accepting of those thoughts, and you're not sitting here thinking, oh gosh, this lady is crazy or whatever. If you think that I'm crazy, then you're still asleep and you're not going to wake up probably ever. But if you're at least open to the idea that we live in a matrix and we live in a world of literal technology and code, every single thing, everything is a code. Everything has a frequency. Everything has a vibrational level. Some of us vibrate on a higher level than others. Others have a lower vibrational frequency, which would be evil, okay? And evil or bad or whatever you want to call that lower frequency, just know that it's anything that's not in a good, happy, loving mood is vibrating on a lower frequency. Anything that's happy and loving, and I can't go any further than that because I can't put labels on things, but all of those things, they vibrate on a higher frequency. And in order for you to gain the mastery, not just of the awakening process, because I think that that's a lifelong lesson, and we are going to have to continue to learn every single day for the rest of our lives. And I don't think that it goes away when our body ceases to exist. I believe it stays in our soul. But my beliefs aside, anyway, listen, guys, you've got to wake up. You've got to renew your mind, unlearn everything you've ever been told. When you're hearing something, try to learn how to hear it and to try to control your thoughts so that it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. Because the longer you think about every single word that someone says or that you read or that you learn, and my goodness, guys, we pay for these educations. And they're all lies, but that's okay. You're being controlled. That's the bottom line here. We live in a matrix world that is all about code and frequencies and wavelengths and literal code numbers, ones and zeros, like literal numbers. Every movement is a literal, it can be decoded literally. Every word, every sound, everything. And in order to transcend from this lower vibrational level, like say anger or something like that, what do you have to do? You have to get in a better mood, right? That's just simply put it that way. you're in a bad mood, and you're going to stay in that lower vibrational level, making it easier to attack you and easier to control your mind, because then maybe you're going to do something distracting, like turn on music or sad song or a movie that either A, makes you feel better, or B, doesn't. But either way, you just got controlled right there both ways, no matter how you look at it. You just fully just got controlled. And it told you how to... You can see a pattern of what's going to make you feel better, no matter what your pattern is. And until you learn how to play with the other patterns or the other frequencies or the other vibrations, you're never, ever going to transcend to a higher level of frequency. And that's fine. There's just no such thing as either divinity or demonic. There are just different vibrational levels. Excuse me 1 second. And everything that you believe to be divine and true and good, remember, we live in an inverted world. It's wrong. And everything that you believe to be bad, think about why you think it's bad. And I'm not talking about crimes, people. Please don't take this the wrong way. I mean, if you don't wake up and go to work every day and eat your lunch at your designated lunch hour and then go back to your job and get off and sit in traffic, what do you think is going to happen to you? Right? You're not complying with societal, what we are expected to do as human beings every single day of our lives, all day, every day, and it never changes. And that's fine. But, we are taught from a very young age, no matter if you're religious or not, or whatever belief system you have, or what kind of family you were raised in, we are taught from a very young age that if you do good things will happen. I'm not going to go into very many details, but I am going to say this is where the word karma comes from. Right? Whatever you do will be put back onto you, blah, blah, blah. We know why? Because we live in an inverted world. Karma couldn't be any more true. Seriously. Whatever you do, it's going to bounce off and it's going to come back at you. It's basically just like the law of attraction, but it's also you accepting the fact that if you wish something bad on someone, something bad really is going to happen to you, because we live in an inverted world. And the fact that it came back to you is further proof of how demented this mind control is, and this process, that we live in, this world, this matrix that we live in, that is completely controlled by the Archons. Okay, so back to the Archons a little bit. If we were to arm ourselves with the right data, because we live in a technological universe where everything has a code and everything can be decoded like actual literal code if you were a software engineer and were to write code. So when we aim ourselves with the correct data and see beyond the software that's being played out for us every single day, think about the Truman Show movie. Check that movie out if you don't know what I'm talking about. So once you've realized that you live in a matrix and that all that we do, all the data that is fed to us all day, every song, every commercial, everything. And again, please watch the Truman Show if you don't know what I'm talking about, and it will help you awaken very quickly. All of that software, we have to understand that it is the data that we receive because it is being fed to us and we are being controlled in that manner. Okay. So, aiming yourself with the right data, aka the awakening process, understand that we live in an inverted matrix world that is nothing more than information technology and data and code, right? And then you'll start ascending to higher levels. You'll be transcending between the Archons game of trying to keep you in a forced way of living and in a forced reality that, I gotta say reality, because we've all been forced to live in this quote unquote perception of reality or reality for our entire lives. And you have to awaken, but first you have to know what that means. Okay? And to awaken is to learn that there is no, there is no, nothing is divine. Nothing is demonic. It's not like that. But the Archons are, I guess that's what you would contribute to the word demonic. They would be like the demons. Okay, they're the controllers. They're the rulers of the universe. These are people in very high power positions. This is the educational system, and they are all keeping us controlled by forcing us to do certain things, or else certain harms will and have and will continue to come to us, right on down to money. And I know that's the third time I've brought up banking, but there is a reason that we are controlled by money. So let's help you awaken a little bit. And within every single one of us, there really is a beautiful knowledge and wisdom. If you really want wisdom, besides going on YouTube and looking at as many billions of videos, and besides listening to this show and hearing me break down subcategories or certain categories every week, which again, it's going to take me years to really spell this all out for you guys and draw you a good picture. But I want you to achieve waking up, and within ourselves, you have to understand that we only speak one language, especially those of us that can kind of hear other people's thoughts or communicate with animals. This is the language of your heart. This is the love language. That's the language that we need to be speaking. That is the only language, because literally every single word that comes out of your mouth creates a sound, which creates a vibration, a level of frequency, and it is converted into code. And you put that out there into the universe, and then somebody else hears it, and all of a sudden they are thinking about that. And I know that's a little confusing and a little contradictive, but it does make sense. Just bear with me here. So we have to break free, okay? The Gnostics have used many rituals to achieve, the breaking free of this being controlled in a controlled environment that we live in, controlled by the Archons. Satanists, paganists. They have certain rituals and things that they do, but so do religions, okay? And a little while ago, I said something about there was a sealed jar found that had scrolls in it, very old writings in it. And I'm pretty sure it was written in Aramaic or something like that. But you know who destroyed those writings? You know who didn't want us to see those writings? The Roman Catholic Church. I probably just got myself in a lot of trouble by saying that on the air, but I'm just stating the facts that those writings were found, discovered, read by a handful of people, and then discarded as nothing before the Bible came out by the Roman Catholic Church. Because before the Bible came out, we have to have gone through the time of the Egyptians and the Babylonians, and we have to move forward and then realize that we went into like Greek mythology times. Okay. Sorry, I'm skipping around a little bit because I don't want to miss anything, and I'm running out of time very quickly. I actually didn't expect this show to happen so quickly. So, the Archons, like I said, it means to rule. It means the ruler. It is frequently used to describe a title of a specific public office, or it is the... Oh goodness, I'm having a hard time reading my own writing. Is the masculine present particle of the verb system, meaning to rule. No matter how you break this down, it means to rule. And Gnosticism, Gnostics, the Gnostics, that is more like the light. Okay? So, the Archons are depicted as hermaphrodite creatures owning bestial faces with an appetite for brawling and fighting, and are essentially a mixture of quote-unquote heavenly administrators and hellish union goons. They're not human, and they are jealous of humans. They don't have any empathy. They don't have any imagination. They do not contain creativity. They don't have any fear. But I guess their greatest tool doesn't have to be fear. I think ignorance is the mother of all evil, according to the Gnostic Gospel of Philip. If humans remain ignorant of their divine origins beyond the universe, the system remains constant, and you are giving the Archons everything they want to keep us enslaved. We are human. We have flaws. Okay? We know that. But we also have free will. And if you want wisdom and you want knowledge, you have to get that from inside of yourself, and you have to do a lot of research. Because I'm running out of time so quickly, I'm going to squeeze in as much more as I can really quickly. So, the Archon nature of being the bumbling administrators here on Earth, right? Bureaucracy and people that keep us ignorant. Let's see, a lot of people in higher power and things like that. You know, in this universe that we live in, this physical universe, was the creation of a demiurge, an Archon. The Archons. Sometimes it is depicted as a snake with the head of a lion, a blind or a stupid god who creates his false world in imperfection, imitation of the real creator. This world is nothing more than a distorted mirror or an image. It is a software. It is an inverted, distorted perception of everything you think you know. Just turn it upside down, literally. You'll see as we get further into these shows and I start pointing out the very obvious symbols, you'll start to see why so many different symbols and signs and words are used and things like that. But anyway, all of this, it brings us to the specific method that the Archons like to use to keep us in, which is absolute ignorance, which is the opposite of liberating, Gnosticism. So bureaucracy, the nature of being administrators of the heavens is their greatest weapon. And it goes on to say, and as above, so below, said, and that's a quote, said the Gnostic Hermetics. And I'm going to have a show about that. That's actually Baphomet. Okay, so Baphomet is the as above, so below. I'm going to leave that right there because we're running out of time a little bit. And while many faiths feel that a celestial bureaucracy is fantastic, history's great anarchists contended that it was quite the opposite. The faulty software which is us humans. Okay, we're hybrids. They created a bad version, and that is us. We are the bad version that they created. They took DNA. Oh gosh, I'm running out of time very quickly. Let me break this down as quickly as possible. We were originally created with 13 strands of DNA. We are now down to 2. Yeah, 2, maybe 3. But so the Archons and those that are higher beings than us, or other dimensional or alien, if you want to call it that, we humans, we're a hybrid of that. Those 13 strands of DNA that originally created us, everyone only has a couple of strands of DNA now. Okay. And I just had to put that in there real quick, because what happened was it created a faulty, we were like a bad software virus. Humans today with the 2 strands of DNA versus the 13, which is where that whole stupid idea that we don't use a whole 100% of our brain comes into play. Well, everybody's got different DNA, right? And there's different blood types, and that's, again, a whole other conversation. But we are faulty software. What happens is, and that's exactly why, you know, some of us are like cloned and things like that, because we are faulty software. And if we stray from what we are being just told to do, but just even if it seems like it's a choice, like we choose to want to do something because we believe that it's going to gain us a place in heaven or something like that. Anyway, we're nothing more than faulty software. And ironically, the perfect mechanism and everything that's going to make the Archons happy, and we are living in an Archon war right now. This is the age of the Archons, and this is also the age of the Icons. Okay? So what do? We look up to people, and we see the videos and the subliminal messages, and we hear the song that gets stuck in our head, and we watch the movie, and we follow certain people, and we idolize certain people. All of that is keeping us trapped. Every single thing that you love is keeping you trapped. So, I realize that once you wake up, you're going to have billions and billions of questions, and I encourage you to learn everything you can. But just a couple more things. Let's see. We'll talk about Aleister Crowley another day. But he writes a book, and a man named Neil Gaiman, a demon appropriately named Crowley, proves that the Archon way is superior in the fight against heaven, and I'm gonna go ahead and say humanity. Humans is a better word. He demonstrates that traffic jams and phone service outages are far more efficient than damning souls than such demonic methods such as possession or temptation, or I'll even say cloning there. So they can take away the things that are going to create a breakdown in you, and you're not going to know what to do. Just turn off all the cell phones in the world. Make it dark. Have people constantly living in fear that there's a doom, an impending doom, and there's always going to be an apocalypse around the corner, or that every time a hurricane happens, that literally the government had nothing to do with it, right? And that's another conversation too. But what do people do? They start running to, I'm not even going to name names here, but stores, and they start buying everything off of the shelves. What? Do you not see how enslaved we are? As a race, as a human race? Everything. The car won't start. You have to go to this department for this. You have to buy this for this to work. We live in a world where you have to have a job to make money, to be a consumer, to buy things, to get things like Netflix, so that you can watch the movies that have all these symbols in them and all these things that I'm teaching you slowly about. And, it is so much more effective than than anything else. You dim the human spirit. This is the dumbing down of humans. That's it. That's all I have time for. I hope I've helped you to awaken a little bit. And please stay tuned to the Facebook page, Decoding the Unknown. And follow me on Facebook or iHeartRadio to listen to the other sessions. I think I mislabeled this one. I believe it says session 4 or 5, but I believe this is session 3. And thank you all for tuning in. And I'll talk to you again soon. And please, guys, wake up. Talk to you soon. Good night.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Decoding the Unknown. Download the ClearSource radio app before our next show and like us on social media for even more excitement. Follow Tiffany H. Lewis on Facebook for upcoming shows. To book your interview and have your Beyond This Realm True Encounter heard live on iHeartRadio. And, if you dare, view the astonishing actual pictures, audio, and evidence taken on location by Tiffany for every episode. You won't believe your eyes. The truth is mystifying.